Okay, so imagine this for a second. You're waiting for a lesson to start, but you aren't sitting in, a classroom with fluorescent lights buzzing.
Right.
You're not staring at a whiteboard
Right.
or aggressively refreshing a syllabus on your phone.
No.
Instead, you're just standing in a cedar forest. The air is cool, it smells like pine and damp earth, and the lesson, well, it just begins without ceremony.
It's such a beautiful image to start with, and it's actually crucial to what we're talking about today because the source material we're looking at emphasizes that there's absolutely no separation between teaching and living.
Right. The forest is the classroom. The body is the instrument.
Exactly.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're exploring what is, essentially a guide to a holistic existence based on the teachings of Anastasia. And I have to say, going through these notes, this feels different.
It does, doesn't it?
Usually we're dissecting, a new tech trend or some complex historical event. This feels quieter,
Yeah.
but also sort of deceptively simple.
It is. It's a definite change of pace. The material itself, it demands a different kind of approach from us. The text uses this term, soft attention, and I think that's exactly what we need here.
Soft attention.
Yeah. We're looking at a framework for how perception, the physical body, and our emotions function, not as like separate buckets you have to manage.
Like gym time, therapy time, work time.
Right. But as a single, fully integrated system.
And the goal here isn't to, gain superpowers or dominate the world. The title of our outline really says it all, Harmony Over Power, which honestly is a tough sell in the modern world.
Oh, absolutely. We love power. We love optimization.
We want to crush our goals.
We do.
Yeah.
We want to hack our biology to live forever,
Yeah.
hack our focus to work 18-hour days. This text just, it goes in the complete opposite direction. And before we even get into the mechanics of it, there's a kind of disclaimer in the text that I think is brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Anastasia doesn't position herself as an authority. She isn't saying, I'm the guru, listen to me. She calls herself a reference.
I love that distinction. It's such a small word change, but it changes the entire dynamic.
Yeah.
She's not asking you to believe her. She's asking you to notice.
Which puts all the responsibility right back on you, the listener. It's an invitation to just observe, not to have blind faith.
Okay, so let's unpack the first pillar of this system. The outline calls it psychic alignment. Now, I'm going to stop you right there.
I was waiting for this.
When I hear psychic, my brain immediately goes to crystal balls, fortune tellers,
Sure.
or, sci-fi movies where someone moves a tank with their mind. Is that what we're talking about here? Because I feel like a lot of listeners might tune out right there.
I completely get that reaction. The word psychic carries a lot of cultural baggage.
Yeah.
But in this specific text, that is not what's happening at all. It explicitly says that psychic ability isn't a gift for special people, and it's not magic.
Okay.
It's described as a natural function of coherent thought.
Coherent thought. Okay, that sounds so much more attainable than mystical gift. It sounds almost technical. So if it's natural, if it's just a matter of thinking clearly, why aren't we all walking around with this clarity? Why do I feel like my thoughts are a jumbled mess 90% of the time?
Well, according to the source, the obstacle isn't a lack of talent. It's not that you aren't spiritual enough. The obstacle is noise.
Noise. That makes so much sense intuitively. We're constantly bombarded, notifications, worries, the to-do list just running in the background.
And it's deeper than just the external noise, though. It's the internal static. We tend to think, oh, I can't perceive these subtle things because I'm a skeptic.
Right. I'm just not wired that way.
The text says, no, you can't perceive them because your receiver is jammed with static.
So how do we clear the static? Because telling someone to stop thinking is like telling someone to calm down. It usually just makes it worse.
Right. And this brings us back to that concept of soft attention. The instruction is to become still, but not rigid.
Okay.
Think about how we usually try to focus. We frown. We tense our shoulders. We stare at the screen. We try hard.
It's like we're trying to drill a hole in the subject with our eyes. It's very intense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anastasia suggests the opposite. You soften that attention. You widen the lens. And there's a specific instruction here that I found fascinating. You're guided to notice the space before a thought forms.
The space before a thought forms? Wow, that's tricky. That's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror.
It takes practice. But that pause, that millisecond of silence before your brain labels something, that is where the information enters. If you're already full of your own internal monologue, describing everything, judging it, categorizing it, There's just no room for anything new to come in. You're just echoing yourself.
Okay, let's say I managed to do that. I soften my gaze, I quiet my internal narrator for a second. What exactly is coming in? Because this is where the source material gets a little wild. It claims these images are responses from the living environment.
Yes. This is the part that probably challenges our modern worldview the most. The text posits that the environment isn't dead matter. It claims that plants, the land, animals, even future outcomes are constantly communicating with us.
Talking to us, like the ficus in my living room has an opinion?
Well, not in English. And that's the key distinction. We rely on words, but the text suggests the environment speaks in images, in sensations, in sudden knowing.
I see.
Language is secondary. It's just the label we slap on the experience after the fact.
I'm trying to ground this in something real. Is this like, okay, have you ever walked into a house you were thinking of buying, and on paper it was perfect, but you just felt heavy?
Oh, absolutely.
Like you just knew, no, not here.
That is exactly the mechanism. Or you feel drawn to walk down a certain path for no logical reason, and then you run into an old friend you needed to see.
Right. We just call that coincidence.
We do. We dismiss it as a lucky guess. Anastasia's framework says that is the environment communicating with your soft attention.
It basically redefines intuition then. It's not just your brain making a guess, it's an actual data transfer.
Precisely. And here's a very counterintuitive point the text makes, which I think is a great litmus test for anyone trying this out.
Yep.
We have been trained by movies to think that true perception is dramatic.
Thunderclaps, visions, burning bushes.
Right. Anastasia says, if the perception is dramatic, it's likely distorted.
If it is quiet, it is usually correct. That is such a good rule of thumb. It filters out the ego, doesn't it? Because the ego loves a big show. The ego wants to be the main character in a fantasy novel.
It does. If you're getting a message that says, you are the chosen one, that's probably just your ego talking. True perception is usually mundane, practical, and very, very quiet. It's just knowing.
And this connects to ethics, right? The source mentions that clarity increases when thought is loving.
Yes, exactly. The text implies that when you accept responsibility for the effects of your thoughts, the signal clears up. If you're trying to use this for selfish reasons, or to manipulate, or to gain power,
The noise comes back.
the noise comes back.
So harmony clarifies, ego distorts.
That's the core equation.
Okay, so that's the mind, the receiver. But we can't talk about a holistic existence without talking about the hardware. Let's move to part 2. Physical attunement.
This is often where spiritual teachings get it wrong, I think. They treat the body as this heavy, dirty thing we have to transcend or ignore.
Right. Ignore the hunger, meditate through the pain.
Exactly. Anastasia does the opposite. She says the body is the first receiver of truth.
The body as a receiver. I like that. It implies the body has its own intelligence separate from my brain.
And it does.
Oh.
Think about the instruction in the text regarding posture and breath. The goal isn't to force your back straight or control your breathing like a drill sergeant. The goal is to feel how the body naturally organizes itself when you stop interfering.
When you stop interfering, that's the key phrase. Because usually I'm slouching and then I realize it, so I snap to attention and tense everything up. I'm just trading one bad posture for another, more rigid one.
Right. It's the difference between standing at attention and just standing tall because you feel safe and capable. The text argues that the body wants to be aligned. It wants to breathe deeply. We're just constantly getting in the way.
This leads to a perspective on health that I found. Well, honestly, a little confronting. The text describes illness as ignored information.
Yeah, we need to be careful unpacking that because in our culture, that can sound a lot like victim blaming.
Totally, like, oh, you have the flu, it must be your fault. If I get sick, I don't want to be told I just wasn't listening hard enough.
Of course not. And that's not the intent. It's not about blame. It's about the timeline of the signals. The text is saying that the body speaks early, and it speaks gently. It whispers.
Hey, I'm tired, or hey, that food made me feel heavy.
Hey, your shoulders are up to your ears, right?
Yeah.
And we ignore the whisper because we have a deadline, or we're scrolling, or we just don't want to deal with it.
We ignore the whisper, so the body has to shout.
And eventually, the shout becomes a symptom or an illness. The illness is just the body's way of forcing you to finally stop and pay attention.
So the practice is listening to the whisper so you don't have to deal with the shout. That actually makes it feel more empowering rather than blaming.
Responsiveness is the perfect word. And this philosophy extends to food, too. I was so relieved to see there wasn't a strict eat raw kale only list.
Me too. I was expecting a very strict ascetic diet, but it really emphasizes listening over rules.
The text says the body knows what it needs, but there's a massive caveat.
Oh,
The body knows what it needs when thought is not anxious.
that is a huge caveat. That's the fine print that gets you. Because when I'm anxious, my body screams that it needs a bag of salty chips and a gallon of ice cream.
Exactly. And that's why this is a holistic system. You can't trust the body's cravings if the mind is full of noise. That craving for chips is the anxiety speaking, not the cellular intelligence.
There's also that beautiful detail about the food itself. That plants gathered with care communicate their suitability through feeling.
It's that connection again.
Yeah.
Everything is talking to everything else. It makes you think about the difference between a tomato from your grandma's garden and one from a plastic box in a megamart.
Mm,
They're not the same.
right. Before we move off the body, we have to talk about rest. The text emphasizes rest without guilt, which in our hustle culture feels like a radical political statement.
It reframes recovery completely. It says recovery is part of creation, not the absence of it.
Recovery is part of creation. I need to tattoo that on my forehead.
Think about it. You aren't stopping the work when you rest. You are doing a necessary part of the work, like a field lying fallow. It's not being lazy, it's regenerating.
But we treat rest like a failure, like, oh, I crashed.
Right. It connects back to the body being organized naturally. If you're exhausted, the natural organization is to rest. Overriding that with caffeine or willpower is that interference we talked about.
So we had the mind clearing the noise, the body receiving the truth. Now we have to deal with the messy part, the part that usually derails the whole operation, the emotions. Part 3, emotional coherence.
This is where most of us trip up, I think.
I feel like we either let emotions drive the bus entirely, just total reactivity, or we stuff them in the trunk and pretend they aren't there. But Anastasia calls emotion navigation.
Navigation is such a useful metaphor because it implies movement. It implies that the emotion is just data telling you where you are. It's not good or bad, it's just coordinates.
But what about pain? No one wants to feel pain. The text makes a distinction between feeling and pain that I found really helpful.
This is a critical nuance. It says emotion only becomes painful when it is denied or when the mind builds a story around it.
The story, that's the killer. I'm sad. Okay, that's the feeling. But then the brain goes, I'm sad because I'm a failure and I'll always be alone and nobody understands me and this will last forever.
That's the story. Exactly. The sadness itself is just a sensation, a heaviness in the chest, a pressure behind the eyes. If you strip away the story, if you just use that soft attention on the physical sensation, the text promises that it resolves pretty quickly.
Sadness passes when allowed. It's the resistance that makes it stick. It's like a Chinese finger trap. The more you pull away, the tighter it gets.
And this applies to joy, too. Joy deepens when not grasped. If you try to hold on to a moment of joy, if you're at a party thinking, I hope this night never ends, you've already killed it.
You're already mourning the end of it.
You have to let it flow through you.
And fear, because fear feels like it's designed to stick around.
According to this framework, fear is not an enemy. It's just information about misalignment. It's the navigation system saying, warning, something is off here, pay attention.
I want to touch on the definition of love in this text because it's really unique. It's not the Hallmark card version.
No, it's not.
Love is not attachment. It is recognition of life in another form.
It takes all the possessiveness out of love. It's not, I need you to complete me. It's just, I see you. I see the life in you, and I recognize it as the same life that is in me.
That's a much more stable foundation. The text uses the child archetype to explain this emotional coherence. And it makes perfect sense. Have you ever just watched a toddler?
Oh, absolutely. They are the masters of this.
Yeah.
They can be furious 1 second, crying their eyes out because they dropped a cracker.
And then a butterfly flies by.
And they're laughing. They're totally present. They don't hold on to it. They don't sit there thinking, I can't believe I dropped that cracker. I'm such an idiot. My day is ruined.
So maturity in this context isn't about developing a stiff upper lip.
No. Anastasia defines emotional maturity as honesty without self-punishment. You can feel the anger, acknowledge it, and let it pass without beating yourself up for having felt it.
Honesty without self-punishment, that's another one for the list. It's a very forgiving system, really. It doesn't demand we be robots.
It demands we be alive, which is messier but healthier.
So we've looked at the 3 pillars: mind, body, emotion. And in a typical self-help context, these would be 3 different books.
Right.
You'd go to a nutritionist for the body, a therapist for the emotion, and a meditation coach for the mind. And they probably wouldn't talk to each other.
But here, in part 4, we see the integration. They aren't separate disciplines. They're one system.
The text connects them beautifully. Psychic perception sharpens when the body is listened to. The body heals when emotion is allowed.
And emotion stabilizes when thought is loving and clear. It's a feedback loop. If you ignore your body, say bad food, no rest, your noise increases, which blocks your perception. You can't fix one without tending to the others.
It's like a three-legged stool. You chop one leg off, the whole thing falls over.
Exactly.
So the million-dollar question. How do we practice this? I mean, this sounds great, but do I need to move to a cedar forest and live in a yurt?
I think that's the fear everyone has with this kind of material. Is this practical? But the answer in the text is incredibly grounding. There is no retreat center. The practice is daily life.
I love the examples given. Caring for land, speaking truthfully, raising children, creating beauty.
These are described as the spiritual acts. You don't pause your life to go be spiritual for 20 minutes. You bring that soft attention, that honesty into the way you wash the dishes or talk to your neighbor.
It demystifies the whole thing. It puts it right in front of us. The forest is wherever you are standing.
And that leads us to the closing guidance from Anastasia, which I think summarizes the entire philosophy.
Do not seek abilities, seek harmony.
That is the core mechanism. We are so obsessed with power over our bodies, power to manifest things. We want to control the outcome. But the text says, when thought loves life, life responds.
It's almost like a trust fall with the universe. You stop strangling the steering wheel and suddenly the car drives smoother.
And the final sentiment is so gentle. You were born knowing how to live this way. Remember gently, it's not something you have to learn. It's something you have to uncover.
It's already in there, just buried under all the noise. The source ends with the image of the forest remaining quiet. The class doesn't really end. It just continues wherever attention becomes kind and clear and responsible.
It leaves us with the sense that we are always in the classroom. The lesson is always available. It's not somewhere else. It's right here.
It's a lot to take in, but in a good way. It feels lighter.
That's the hallmark of this approach. If it feels heavy, it's probably the noise or the story. If it feels light and clear, you're likely on the right track.
So as you go about your day driving in traffic, cooking dinner, dealing with that stressful email, here's a question to carry with you. We talked about how noise blocks us. If you stopped seeking power or control right now and just sought harmony, what noise would drop away from your life instantly?
That's the question.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.